nerves. Better shake your booties for black girl nerves.
Yay, you guys are together. Yay. Just one box. But I thank you guys for your time. I love a whodunit. I love pot stirs. I like all of the elements that the series is bringing, and it made for a really entertaining ride. Beginning with you, Cooper, there's always the bad boy kind of archetype in a story. And usually the bad boy is probably the least bad of them all. It's probably something that's pushed him into that. Is that a fair assessment of your character, Nate? Was he kind of pushed into that role, or was he just bad?
Yeah, very much so. And first off, thank you for your time as well. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great question as well, and I think it's a very fair assessment. I think Nate is a kid that has had a very troubled past, and he's just trying to cover up those wounds. And through all this pain and trauma, you develop these defense mechanisms to protect yourself. And so that's all Nate is trying to do. He's just trying to protect himself. And what's so beautiful about these characters and Nate and Karen and the writers just did such a great job in creating these characters and doing creating them so authentically. And I think what's beautiful about the Bronwyn and Nate dynamic is that Bronwyn really kind of breaks down those walls and opens his heart a little more and makes him see himself for who he is. Because I think he loses touch of that, and you do. I think if you go through something like that, you kind of become a hard shell. And so throughout the journey, we see that hard shell crack, and we see the pureness underneath.
Yeah.
For you, Marianly, with Bronwyn, I think a lot of people can relate parent expectations versus personal wants and desires for their own life. How is she managing to kind of walk that road of those two things, try to fit into their teen society of school? It's a real precarious tightrope, especially for high achieving people, because it's a very delicate balancing act. How is she able to manage?
100%. I think she's an extremely strong young lady for trying to manage so much, because there's also the fact that her little sister has overcome a chronic illness, cancer, and the pressure, but also the strength comes from that, because seeing Maeve, Bronwyn's little sister, go through that is fuel for her. That if she could overcome that, and she was so strong and survived, then surely I can take on this, and surely I can do this, and surely I can take on all the pressure and the load that my parents are putting on me, and I can do it as gracefully as I can. But then we see when detention happens and the traumatic event that happens there, how she is human and not perfect, and so much more than a high achieving student.
Mm-hmm. At the core of this, a lot of this jumps off because we've got a central pot stirrer in Simon. And Cooper, what do you think that pot stirrers ultimately gain from doing that? What is the enjoyment that a pot stirrer gets from spinning everybody out of control?
Yeah, I think it's it's kind of evil. It's kind of I think Simon is someone that throughout high school he's only tried to be himself, and that's great. But I think in high school there's a lot of fakeness, and people kind of put up this facade, and Simon doesn't like that. And so I think all he's trying to do is make people see themselves for who they are, and make everybody else see them for who they are as well. Just just break down that facade and be yourself. But at the same time, he does it in such a nasty way by creating this app and posting about and exposing people's secrets on this app. And it's kind of, people know about him, but it's also kind of anonymous at the same time, and very toxic as well. And, he kind of gets pure enjoyment out of it.
And I think going off of Mark, because Mark mentioned also, and probably another interview we've done, that like the fun for him to play Simon is that Simon, you know, has been a very bullied person throughout high school, and then he gets, you know, his chance of like getting back at those bullies
Redemption.
in a very, so he becomes the bully, but not because he's strong and has the physicality to it, but in a very clever way.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, he started the app not knowing the grave consequences that it would have in people's lives, but then the power trip is too much for him to let go almost.
Yeah, really.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great bad guy origin story. You know, all bad guys have a true origin story that's usually derived from pain. And, you know, I hope folks don't get lost on that, because he was getting jacked up. And then now he's giving people their comeuppance. Lastly, Marianly, obviously the story is fantasy, you know, it's a work of fiction, but we all were teenagers at some point in our life. When you look back to your own teen navigations, what were difficult things that were happening during that era? Not, you know, your complete personal business, but just teens in general, because as social media and all these things evolve, it becomes increasingly more difficult for teens to kind of navigate the world. So what do you think what was happening, what was prevalent for you during that period in your life?
For sure. Thank you for that question, because it's a really good question. And I think that's why also, to start with, we're so it's so relatable to watch teen shows, because we've all been through it. And even though there's, you know, the social media elements is like a newer thing, we all kind of had the same struggles about finding out who we are and what we want to do in life, and the parental pressure. And I think for me, I think I knew from a very young age I wanted to be an artist and a performer of some sort. But then I come from a very small town where I didn't have anyone who was an actor or a performer, like in my immediate family or like extended family or like even a friend. So it wasn't until later where I saw that as a possibility. So like breaking out of what I was expected to do and the careers that I could pursue, because I started going to school for architecture for some time until I made the decision of, okay, acting is what I want to do and want to pursue. That was something that I was faced with at a very young age, because I think I was aware of what I wanted to do. I just didn't know how to go about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it's a great question as well. It's very, very important too. And I think, like, you know, in today's age with social media and social media being such a central part of the show, you can get kind of caught up in social media, and it can be dangerous too. Like, it can be, you know, very fake and misconstrued information. And so I think it's, you know, important to be careful for like young people going about their high school lives and then social media as well, and to not take things too personally or you know for face value. Like, you know, if you hear something over social media, don't just take it as it being true, because I think there's a lot of false information out there. Yeah, and just kind of you know, in my high school life, it was very much about trying to find out who I was, and a lot of the show is that, just our characters finding out who they are, and at the core of it, that's kind of what life is about too. Yeah.
I love that. The teens need more of that, and you guys were wonderful. Thank you for your time. Very cool series. I enjoyed all of you in it. Terrific job, and I appreciate you talking to me.
Thank you so much for your time, Janae.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you to the both of you. I'm happy to see you guys together and talk about this great project.
Thank you
for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Thank you for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. With these young, in the midst of all of this chaos going on because a murder has happened, there's a lot of pressure to maintain the perception that the students have of each of your individual characters versus the realities of what's going on in their lives. Chibuikem, beginning with you, how would you say Cooper is able to maintain navigating what's happening on campus, being involved in it, and staying true to himself without just losing it altogether?
Cooper has so much strength, because all that young man faces, I really don't. It's more than I can put up with. Being a transfer student, you know, in the middle of high school, and now you're at a new school, facing a murder investigation, having the pressure of performing as a baseball player at the highest level, where you have a chance to be the breadwinner for your family, while also coming to terms with how you want to present your sexuality to the world. It's so much that he's facing. And how does he keep it together? A lot of resilience, a lot of courage, and a lot of willpower.
For sure. Annalisa, for you, for Addy, we have this beautiful girl who people are looking to for style inspiration, whatever things they admire about her. But in essence, she seems like a very simple young lady. She just wants to live a happy life, live in love, and just not be those things that people think that she is. The same thing for her. How is she able to manage this tightrope, especially when all these eyes are on her, like she's a villain?
Yeah, I don't think she is, like she is barely, she can't hold it together. Like she doesn't want to be, I think that she doesn't want to be all those things that people and her mother tell her that she should be. She's so much more than that, but she doesn't even know that because she's so constrained by that box. And you see it from the first episode. She has to have some calming agents. She has to take some drugs to keep her sane enough. And then in moments like you can't repress those sides of you forever. Like that comes out in different ways, and the shame of hiding certain things comes out in other decisions that are not healthy. And so it results in her having this giant secrets that will ultimately destroy her world, but maybe that's the best thing for her. And then I think out of that, she finds that strength, she finds that resilience, she finds courage.
Yeah. What I would also add is there are, at least for Cooper, he does have people in his life. He does have a younger brother who he can turn to. He does have a very supportive best friend and girlfriend. And he does have, another interest in his life, friend in his life that presents some, shows him how you can exist in the world. So, and then he also has a baby in a sense. So there are people that also help them hold it together against all odds.
Yeah. Isn't that how you do it? Community.
I've been having so much fun talking to all of your castmates today because you all legitimately and genuinely seem to enjoy this project and enjoy working with each other. So I've been asking people, who would they switch with if they could switch with anybody else in the cast and play their part? And it's been some really hodgepodge, motley crew type of answers. So Chibuikem, beginning with you, who would you switch with? It could be literally anyone.
Oh my gosh.
No restrictions.
I don't know. There's something like devious about Simon's character that is like quite fun, but I wouldn't want to switch with, but I think I just appreciate how Janae's character and her like authenticity and carefree nature. So those two characters are very appealing to me in a way.
How about for you, Annalisa?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I would love to be able to dive in. I love playing Addy, but it'd be so fun to play a little bit of Janae's character. I wouldn't want to though, because Jess is the best.
Exactly.
She's
I don't even touch it.
She's perfect. Yeah. But then I also agree Simon would be really interesting just because that like know-it-all. He has this devious little smile all the time.
Yeah. Menacing.
Yeah. And then there's something interesting about Barrett Carnahan's character, Jake. I just think that it would just be interesting. Yeah. It'd be fun.
It was funny. I think all of you have said Janae, except for Janae. She didn't say herself. But all of you have said this character. Is she running you guys checks?
Yeah, absolutely. She's actually on FaceTime right now.
You better say it. You better say my name.
Yeah.
And lastly, these teams, obviously, it's fantasy, it's a story, it's entertainment. And in a series like this, we hope that there's not a rampant killer running around a high school. We hope not. We didn't keep it in the fantasy realm for sure. What would you like, beginning with you, what would you like folks to appreciate most about the series after they finish watching all the episodes?
There's a lot of rawness in the series, and there's beautiful journeys of self-discovery. And I would love for people to, while, having fun and getting lost in this bingeable series, there's a lot of like hard-hitting topics that are brought up. And I think there's a lot of lessons that can be taken away from that about how to navigate and cope with stress, and, you know, how we should, you know, healthy outlets that we can take. But also the main thing for me is just presenting your truest self and owning yourself. That's something that I would especially want young people to take away, because there can be so much pressure, and there can be, it can feel like you're so alone at times, but there are people out there that people care, and I want people to know that.
Mm-hmm. Annalisa, do you think teenagers have it harder today?
I think, yeah. I think totally, yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, you know, every generation thinks that, but I really think that today, with the added pressure of social media and the added pressure of this lens of, you know, it's just up close all the time on people. That's so difficult. Like, I can't imagine being 13, 14 right now and going through life. And then like you have your real life, but then you have this like whole other social online dynamic. And it's just, I don't know how they deal with it. And I don't know how they deal with the pressures. And that's why, honestly, I think that's why, you know, Gen Z, we can kind of see the beginnings on TikTok, and they're so resilient, and they so seem to like are starting to figure things out at quite an early age, because I think they haven't been able to be real kids, you know, like you grow up so quick because you have the internet looking at you, and you have it at your fingertips. And yeah, so it's just
power to you.
Yeah, truly.
For sure. I'm glad I'm not a teenager now. I thank you guys. You guys were marvelous. This is such a cool series. I love a whodunit. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much to the both of you for your talents and what you brought to this project. It's a terrific series, and I love a good whodunit, especially when it involves savvy teenagers, very savvy teenagers. Nice. Beginning with you, Melissa, there's so much chaos and all of these things that are happening in the school, and they seem pretty well adjusted considering one of their classmates got murdered by someone amongst them. What do you think is the emotional level of these kids?
I think for everyone's obviously very shaken by it. I think just some people are better at internalizing it than other characters are, and the show does a very good job at showing how every single person deals with it and how everyone is dealing with it in wildly different ways.
Absolutely. Jessica, for you, with Janae and all of the other characters, you know, there really isn't a white, black, you know, everyone's kind of playing in the gray. No one is distinctively good. No one is distinctively bad. How would you describe Janae?
Yeah, very gray. I mean, I've said this before, so I loved that you used that language. I think there's lots that Janae does in this show that she has justified to herself and she feels is right to do. But she definitely affects people negatively, and she also affects people positively. So very, very gray, and very, you know, self-righteous.
Speaking of affecting people, just before you guys, I was talking to the room with Mark and Barrett, and Barrett was saying, they were. I asked him if you could switch with anyone in the show, and he said you. And he said there's a particular scene of yours that he loved. He was like, it was a short scene, but it was something that you did. It was something behind the eyes. However you performed it, he was like, if I could switch with anybody, I would switch with her because I loved how she did that. I'm going to toss it over. Do you know what he's referring to?
No idea. Not a clue. And I think I'm mostly just shocked that Barrett said anything nice about me. Wow. This man being kind to me?
We got to Postmates him a dinner.
I might just. I mean, I think, and what's so funny about that, and I think he knows this, I've said this to him before, is that if there was any other character that I could play in the show, it would be Jake.
Mm-hmm. See, you guys have that cosmic connection.
Ugh, I hope not.
Melissa, what is it do you think about human beings? from I think it's ingrained in us when we're little, playing Clue and games like that. Why do we love a whodunit mystery so much? They're always entertaining.
Such a good question.
Really?
I think it's the factor of the unknown. Like, the unknown is so fascinating because it could be anything. So I think just trying to figure it out, because like I also think humans love the unknown and hate it, because as humans we just want to figure it out and have all the answers all the time. So I feel like trying to figure it out is fun, but also figuring out kind of like lets you take a breather, and it's like, okay, well now I have the answer to that, so there's nothing unknown and there's nothing like dangerous there, because like fear of the unknown. So I think the unknown.
We as humans, we also like other people's drama. We love drama when it's not ours, from train wrecks on the side of the road to all of those things. And in this story, we have Simon who's stirring the pot, and it's kind of diverting attention to probably what he's got going on. What is the satisfaction that, Jessica, do you think that a pot stirrer ultimately gets from what they're doing?
I think you're right on the money. Simon has a lot in his own life that he doesn't want people to touch or to hear about. And I think a lot of what about that is projection. And I also think that Simon had a tough time with bullies growing up. And I think that he took back the power in a way that was right for him at the time, but obviously not totally morally correct. So, yeah.
And lastly, I'll ask the both of you, you don't have to say which character you thought it was, because I don't want the headline to be like, Melissa Jessica said this is the killer before the series ends. But after you read through the whole script, who had an idea? Not the whole script. When you do the basis of the story, did you have an idea, or did you have a prediction of who the killer was? Were you able to kind of just guess before you knew all the way through who it is? But you don't have to say who it is. Did you have an idea of who you thought it might be, Jessica, and then Melissa afterward? You
know, we knew what the approximate ending would be. So I have to say, like, I didn't get the chance to have a prediction, but I think the things that I did have predictions about were who was involved more than others, who knew things that they weren't sharing. I think that's what's so fun about the writing on the show, is that it surprised us too.
Yeah.
How about for you, Melissa?
I would say likewise, like we've kind of were told sort of the base of the ending while we were shooting the pilot, so I didn't really have a chance to like take wild guesses on who the killer would be. But reading the book, funny enough, I have to say, like, Maeve and Janae, for me, I was like, I think maybe they didn't kill Simon, but there's definitely more to them than what we're seeing in the book, just because they're side characters in the book, but they're also so crucial and so directly intertwined with the whole situation that I was like, they definitely have to be pulling some sort of strings here in some way. So yeah, Maeve and Janae were kind of like my primary suspects reading the book.
I loved Maeve and Janae. You know, it was like, they might not wear the evening gown, but they were the terrific Spanx that keep the gown together underneath that you don't see. They're not, they're not the gown, but they holding it together too.
Oh yeah.
Well, I thank you, ladies. I had a great time with the series, and thank you for talking to me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're a delight. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Ooh, I love a little whodunit, especially when it involves high school students, because students are far more savvy, I think, than we give them credit for. Barrett, beginning with you, there's always the challenges for teenagers of reality and perception, well, adults too, but especially with teenagers now in the social media era. How do you think that Jake navigates this in the midst of all of these things that are occurring at the high school following the death?
I think Jake is somebody that is always kind of striving for perfection. You know, he's kind of had this responsibility on him for a long time at this point. You know, he kind of, you know, hit a growth spurt in, you know, the late years of junior high, and now he's kind of the big man on campus, and everything has always gone according to plan to him. And then he brought Addy into that world with him. And then there's more responsibility, you know, having your Princess Diana next to you, essentially. And as 17-year-old kids, you know, you're at the dawn of facing reality at that point. And I think that life can hit you really, really hard. And to think that you have it all together at 17 years old, just to be completely let down is hard. Now, add murder to the mix and add, you know, an entire murder investigation to your high school that can really, really shake things up, and kids can really just kind of go off the deep end after that.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of mob mentality in that. You know, if you point the finger at someone long enough, the group is all going to shift their head and look that way. And I think that's what's happening with our investigators that we'll see over the course of the season. For Mark, for you, pot stirring. You know, I've been known to be a little pot stirrer, not to your character's extent, but it's interesting. What do you think is the satisfaction that a person gets from being a pot stirrer? What is it deflecting from them that they're drawing the herd away?
I think for Simon specifically, it's that idea of how much power he holds in this school. I think before Simon had this app, he was probably under the radar or some nerdy kid that was bullied by people. And I think now that he has this app and he just holds power over the entire school, he kind of feels like he owns everyone now. And I think to him, it would just be, it would be like what Jake is going through. If he was to not have that anymore, that would be like the worst thing in the world to him. So to him, he wants this to never end. He just wants this whole school to be his puppets forever.
Mm-hmm. Barrett, for you, back to Jake. Is he hanging on by a thread? Is it easy for him to get off his path? How was his journey during the season? Is it as perilous as it seems?
I think that there's a lot kind of laying onto the surface. And you know, Jake is kind of written off as just the boyfriend of Addy, but there's definitely a lot more going on there than you think. And what we come to find out is that the secret that Addy is keeping, that she's, you know, terrified of the fact that Simon knows. She knows that if it got out there, that it would affect Jake as equally as it would affect her. So there's a lot kind of, you know, dangling, on a thread here. And it's just a matter of time before it just gets cut and everything goes to hell.
Mm-hmm. Ultimately, these are young people who are finding their ways. Unfortunately, Mark Simon's time gets cut short. With the journey of high school students, where do you think it's more difficult now to be a high school student, less difficult? Because there's always been challenges for high school students, and these in particular are somewhat well adjusted. Is it harder for high school students these days, do you think?
I would say so, just because of how prevalent internet culture has become and how kind of done up everybody looks all the time, or how good they make their lives look and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's kind of more performative now than it used to be for teenagers. They kind of always look put together. I feel like they have more pressure on themselves now.
Do you think Simon is as simple as like I don't know, is he a protagonist? Is he an antagonist? We don't really get to spend time with him. We know that he's stirring the pot, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's a terrible person. Where is he in that black and white scale of good and bad, do you think?
I think it's actually a line in the show as well. I think Simon is chaotic neutral. I don't think he's not a bad guy or a good guy. He just kind of does what he wants.
Such a good way of describing him.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, Barrett, if you could switch with any, all that you know about the character, all of the characters in the show, if you could switch with anyone, no matter who they are, male, female, whatever, if you could switch with anyone in the show, who would you want to switch with?
Janae.
How come?
Janae for sure. I was on set one day and I was watching her, and I think she had one line, and it was a very, very small line, but it was what she did between the spaces that I just went up to her afterwards and I was like, you are the ultimate bad boy. And she played it so well that it made me want to sink my teeth into that role because she played it with so much mystery and so much going on behind her eyes. And I think that would have been a really, really fun role to play.
That's awesome.
Also, I would have had way more scenes with Mr. Mark McKenna over here.
Yes.
Which is weirdly enough, actually, everyone requested to have less scenes with me.
Oh, I doubt
I mean,
that.
there's something about that man.
And I requested to have less scenes with everyone else.
Yeah. And I don't want to feel this way, but I can't help it. I don't know what it is.
We're crossovers.
I love all the scenes that you all are in. This is a very fun and very cool series. I thank you for your time, gentlemen. Great job. And look forward to people talking about it. Thank you so much. Take care.
Better shake your booties for black girl nerves. Better shake your booties for black girl nerves.